I'd like to call this special meeting to order, April 15, 2025. I'll call the meeting to order. Please observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance at the rear. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Manley, can you please call roll?
Olney.
Here.
Loco.
Here.
Donner.
Here.
Otto.
Present.
Manley. Here. Roman.
Here.
And Chick is absent with notice.
Thank you. I make a motion we adopt the agenda.
I'll support.
Supported by Donner. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Petitions and communications. Anyone wishing to address the board tonight may do so now. Anyone? Seeing none, we'll move on. In that case, there's no board member comments or clarifications. Go to the first item agenda is Township Manager interviews. And with that, Mr. Vitrano.
Thank you, members of the board. Pausing to see if the camera is going to move towards me. It may. I'll continue. The goal we're going to have this evening is to interview 3 candidates for the position of Township Manager. You have 2 that are going to be live. The first 2 candidates are here already. In your packet and in the public packet, there was 4 candidates listed. Candidate number 1 has accepted a position in another community, so we are interviewing candidates 2, 3, and 4. Candidate 3 is actually our first order is 3, 2, 4. As soon as they introduce themselves with their names, you'll probably find them pretty quick. The goal this evening is for the Township Board to ask questions, for the candidates to respond. We have prepared 10 questions for the board to ask the candidates. The first question was provided to the candidates in advance, and I will be asking that question. My preference, if the board would like, is for us to assign questions around, and each board member will ask one of the questions, and we'll just come back around almost twice. I think we'll be one short of twice. At the end, I will take back the mic from that corner to close out the interview with the candidate. I'll switch out the candidates. We'll probably have a short break between each interview, particularly the last one that we have to set up by video. At the conclusion of the third interview, I will facilitate a discussion with this board to talk about the candidates. You'll note on your question sheet that I have provided a rating area if you would like to rate the candidates on each question. That is not a requirement. That is not even a recommendation. It is for your notes and your tracking and your discussion points at the end when we discuss the candidates that you'd like to either their scoring is. These are notes for you. You are the elected officials and can make the decision based on any piece of the interview or I encourage you to consider the whole interview, but any piece of the interview that you view as more important than other, that is your prerogative as the elected officials doing the interviewing. Again, the points and the scoring is there for your assistance, not for any external collection. During that conversation that I'll facilitate at the end, we will have a couple of options. One will be to forward candidates to a second interview. One will be to select one of the 3 candidates, and one would be to reject the 3 candidates. We have an opportunity to potentially schedule that second candidate interview for Thursday. The plan is for Tuesday for you to take action a week from today at your regularly scheduled meeting to announce a preferred candidate. You can obviously do that at the end of the meeting today if you would like to, but I'll facilitate that discussion, hopefully do it well for your consideration. None of the candidates will be able to hear the other candidates during the interview process. That was asked of all candidates. 2 of the candidates I have control over. The third, I trust, will not be viewing. Any questions for me before we start the first interview? If not, I'd like to assign the questions if you're comfortable with that. And maybe if we just start here with trustee member number, Adam, you would have number 2, 3, 4, supervisor gets 5, Jackie 6, 7, Jacob, 8, back to Adam, 9, 10 for the clerk, and then it comes back to me. And we'll use that order for both of the first 2 interviews. The third interview, I will be at the Zoom interview or the video interview. I will be asking all the questions for purposes of sound for the candidate. If you have a follow-up question, if there's something that the candidate said there in their answer that you would like clarified or a follow-up on, I would ask that you be recognized by the supervisor, and the supervisor recognizes you, and then you ask your follow-up. Each interview will be about 50 minutes. I will be very cognizant of the time, so please, I encourage you to ask follow-ups, but we do want to get through the question batch that we have. If there's time at the end, I'll be tracking that time, and I'll give you an opportunity to ask additional questions if we have that time. My focus is more on equity of time rather than on number of questions that each candidate has. I think the amount of time they have with you is the important measurement. I think that's all the instructions I have. If there's no questions, I'll introduce the first candidate. All right. Adam, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Thank you for the preparation that you've done in advance of this meeting, both in the preparation specifically for this interview, but particularly for the time you've spent with me throughout the process. It is a commitment to go through and get to this far in the process, and I certainly appreciate it, and I know the township does as well. I'll ask you the first question, and then each member is going to go around and ask a question, and then you have, we'll have about 10 prepared questions. There may be follow-ups to each question, or there may not be. You shouldn't interpret a follow-up or non-follow-up as any indication regarding performance. But we'll get started with the first question, which is an opportunity for you to introduce yourself. We've asked you to prepare a 3 to 5 minute introduction of yourself and the reasons you will be successful as Northfield's next Township Manager. The floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity of having me here. As James told you, my name is Adam Klein. I'm an Army veteran, 32-year retired law enforcement officer, rose to the level of Chief of Police. I continued my public service in Oakland Township and Independence Township in leadership positions. I continue my public service outside of my employment. Father of 5, youth coach, high school football coach, served on the local Village of Goodrich Planning Commission, also Village Council. I'm the current Planning Commissioner. I think I've been 20 years now as Planning Commissioner. I do booster organizations, Optimist Club, Eagles, Fraternal Order of Police, also the Michigan chapter of FBI National Academy Associates. And I am also an avid recreational boater. You'll find me most weekends on my boat, if I can be. I think Northfield Township presents an opportunity for me to continue my public service at a level of leadership that I am most effective. I know you guys, you have a lot of things going on here. I've viewed a lot of your meetings. I've looked at your master plan, which I know is up for discussion and is going to be continued. And I think that you are in need of a manager here. You have a lot of competence in Township Manager. As I mentioned, for Oakland Township as Township Manager for over 4 years. Township budgets, help with auditing, road projects, sewer projects, water projects, bridges. Also wrote grants, MNRTF for Parks and Recreation, and Independence. We also did a few grants there also. And then the maintenance of those grants, got to make sure the papers and stuff get finished. I think, you know, my experience, it makes me a good candidate, but I think my passion for public services is why I think it would be really a good fit for Northfield Township.
Thank you, Adam. I think trustee has the first question.
First, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. For our first question, based on your research and understanding of the township, what do you believe are the most important opportunities and challenges for the township, and how would you approach these?
Mr. Klein, I'm going to interrupt real quick. Could you just pull the mic a little closer to you and it's front and center to you?
Oh.
There you go. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
So just to recap, focusing on the opportunities and challenges facing the township currently, and how would you approach them?
With the opportunities, I think, are plentiful. You have several projects that are coming into the township that are going to need some guidance. The PUDs that you have going down on Territorial Road, the sewer that you may or may not have capacity for, you know, that needs to be worked on. I see that as an opportunity rather than as a negative sort of thing. And then your Whitmore Lake area or Northfield, is it, you want to call it the hamlet of, okay. Up in that area, it seems to be, it needs to be addressed, attended to. You have the park that's there that may or may not be planned for right now, where the plans may have fallen through, so we need to pick that back up and get that finished and designed the way that you folks want it. And then, you know, the opportunity there for the bill, bring in new businesses and to that area that kind of meet the challenges or the, I guess, the flavor of what a village is, you know, community, sense of community, inviting. And all of those, I think, are exciting things to work on here in the township. I mean, you have, you know, the roads that you're working on, the different, you know, the bridges, the overpasses, the underpasses, and all that kind of stuff. All of those things need to be managed, and you guys need to be aware of those. And I see those all as opportunities that a manager can take care of.
Yep.
Thank you. All right. How would you describe your management and leadership style? Please identify both strengths and weaknesses related to your management and leadership approach.
Okay. I would say my management style is it's situational and is I can make decisions when they need to be addressed. And most of that's based on time. If something immediately needs to be done, then I can make those decisions. Otherwise, I like to be collaborative. I want the most eyes or the most minds on a particular project or a particular decision that needs to be made. That way I can get buy-in on that decision. And if people could take ownership of decisions, then usually it ends up as a better decision made. Strengths, I would say the collaboration, and I enjoy those things. You know, I look to build an environment where employees, where staff, where even citizens are valued for their decisions. So I would say that's strength. Weakness, sometimes I can be a little too quick not getting, the timing may be off. I'm thinking it needs to be immediate and it could be held off a little bit. So a little quick. I do not like to go in without some research, so it's never that quick. But I think I could hold off a little bit more, and I would say that would be a weakness. Sure.
Hello.
Hello.
What do you consider essential in the relationship between a township manager and the township board? And how would you facilitate a productive relationship with the board?
One is trust. I think trust is essential. Honesty, communication is key, and the communication goes both ways. How would I facilitate that is, I want to give you as much information as possible. Sometimes it may be too much. You might not want it. But I want to give you as much as that information before any decisions are made, or, I would hate for you to be caught off guard for some particular reason on something that I might know about that you didn't. So that would be something I would work to, I guess, clear up, make sure that you have all the information. And it would go both ways. I mean, if you guys, prior to board meetings, or prior to any decision, anything that's going on, if you need information on me, I want you to contact me, because I will get you the answers. Again, the worst feeling is sitting over there or wherever the township manager sits and getting asked a question they had no idea. That there's just awful feeling. So communication, trust, and open.
Please describe this, excuse me. How do you see this role fitting into your longer-term career goals? And what would long-term success in this position look like to you?
Longevity would be long-term success, because that means I'd be doing a good job and you'd want to keep me around. Long-term, I view this position, or if this one doesn't work out, maybe the next position, as the last position I'm going to be doing. I like working where I'm wanted. I like this style of position. I like the nuances, the different sort of things that a township manager has to do. That is interesting, and it keeps me going. And I'd like to keep doing it. So I see this as the last spot. I didn't plan on going anywhere. So if in fact that seems to be the case, then it would be finished. And the longer I'm here, that means I'm doing a good job, and you guys still have faith in me in doing the position. Like expressing a lot with my hands.
Please describe the strategies you would use to recruit and retain talented individuals to serve the township. And please share specific examples from your previous.
Keep people here in the township. Again, as discussed, I like to create a space where employees are valued. Open communication, I model behaviors that I expect. I lead by example. And I want to, oftentimes I will give jobs, tasks, things that I think employees can complete to maybe boost some ego. And then I want to reward, or I guess, just acknowledge those good things that they have just done as a behavior that we want to encourage here in the township. So that would be a strategy in how I would keep and retain people. And the open communication is huge. You want to listen. You want to make sure you're capturing everything. Personal, if it's you get involved employees' families and what's going on in their lives and things like that. So you want to listen. I try not to give out any fatherly advice because that gets a little too heavy. But no, I want to be present and available for employees. Now, as far as yeah, I know, like police chief and fire chiefs, they have difficult times nowadays getting people to come in. Then less, or it's more difficult than it is with general employees, because usually word of mouth and somebody like I met some folks earlier, and I'm sure they already, if you need somebody, they already know who the next person is going to be. Or you yourself. I mean, you all know people here in the township that would be a good fit for here. So I would listen, and then again, I want to acknowledge their good behaviors and make sure we publicly praise those. And don't give fatherly advice.
How have you effectively managed budget and financial responsibilities in your previous roles? Can you provide an example of how you communicated budget decisions transparently to stakeholders?
So in Oakland Township, we had a complete budget procedures. We moved, we were at fiscal year, and then we moved to calendar year. So that was a rather difficult maneuver with state treasury and all of those different entities. But it's all done in the public. I start with department head meetings. I start with department heads. We look at, first talk with the financial director, financial advisor, or department head. Find out where we are on revenues, if we're the same, and I look at past budgets, and then we're going to go from there. What does the department head need? Okay, how is it going to fit in the budget? And we're going to go through that. Well, that's not going to work. That's going to work. We're going to plan, and then we're going to do workshops. We're going to draft the entire budget out. We're going to come back to you, present the budget with the department heads to roll through why they, you have questions on this particular item or this particular group, or, why do we need a new fire truck now? We just got one, that kind of thing. So we would go through all of that, and then, the state mandates the date on if we're going on fiscal or calendar, and that will all be presented during public meetings. The workshops are public meetings. The budget presentations are public meetings, so it will all be done in public. Now, expenditures and things like that, I admit that I was watching a couple of meetings, and I know you had some discussions about expenditures, and I don't know if you have a rule, a procedure, or whatever that gives the township manager to spend up to this amount, department heads this amount, and then everything above that, it's got to come to the board for approval. So that's how we would keep a lot of that public. Now, certainly if something came close to the township manager's opinion or his limit, you may say, I may get a call from the supervisor or somebody that said, no, you have the approval to do that, get that done, and I can do it that way also, but prefer to, as I said, like, the more eyes on the problem, or the more eyes, the more ownership, usually the better it is. If nobody wants this thing done, then we probably shouldn't do it. So, Jacob, I don't know if I answered it correctly, but those are how I usually work in the township manager role.
Thank you.
Sure.
Back around. All right. In your past roles or projecting to what, sorry, let me start over.
That's all right.
In your past roles or projecting to what you will do at Northfield, how have you or will you try to manage a community growth in a way that preserves community character and supports the community's economic goals? Can you provide a specific example of what you have done or would plan to do as the township manager? That's a pretty long one, so if we need to revisit any of it.
I was supposed to be the one that was nervous and stumbling over my words. So in past roles, at Township Manager specifically, which I think relates specifically to Northfield Township and Oakland Township, firstly when I got there, I met with staff, and I met all the township trustees, and then they had what was called office hours, extra and additional meetings, and listen, so I have to get a feel for what the township wants. And a lot of times it'll come informally. I may be, down at Whitmore Lake, they may have I don't know, some event, and say, oh, you're township manager, let me tell you about this. So it may come in different ways. So I'm going to listen to all of those things and get a feel for what the township, should look like, what you want it to look like. How can I help it look like that? But all that information is going to be brought to you guys. I try not to push like the people that you represent, the citizens here of Northfield, and what they want. And so I would look for and try to shape my projects, my advice, my, whatever's coming to you guys in that manner. So I first need to gain the information from the citizenry, the people that live here.
Thank you. The township has significant investments in its wastewater treatment plant and has grant funds to invest in shoreline and park improvement projects. Please provide your experience in managing large public infrastructure projects.
Sure. Again, I think directly related, Oakland Township, we had to do water storage tanks, also had to do some sewer improvements. That was collaborating with the county and several others, Macomb County also, and for one. Now, the water project, the water storage tanks, we had neighborhoods that were on private wells or on community wells that exceeded the number that the state allows. So we had 2 of those areas. So we had to build water storage tanks that, of course, nobody in the township wants a water storage tank in their backyard. They want it in somebody else's backyard. So we started that project, or both of those projects. We started with OHM engineers, which I think you have here also, designed a water storage tank, designed actually a couple high gravity, low tank, and then we did public meetings. We had invited the public in from those particular areas because they were the ones going to be paying for it. So first we did a couple mock-ups. I think Novi or Commerce had a low one. Somebody else, Wixom had a high one. We brought those in, said, here's what it could look like. But we have to do these sort of things. So we started with land, where we're going to put it. Then we started with the model of what it was going to look like, and then it went to cost. And then so how were we going to get the funding? They prepaid a lot because they knew it was coming, but it was still more than they prepaid. So we did, and one of the projects went out for bond. The other one we did, I think it was a DWSRF, I think it's drinking water, safe drinking water loan, low interest loan through the state. Then we went out to bid on the project, and sealed bids. And I'm going to I didn't finish the second one. I left Oakland Township. The first one, we did the bid, and I would attend, I think they were not weekly, bi-weekly meetings, all done via Zoom, with the plumbers, because they were the separate Water Resources Commission who was doing the water. So, and as we finished all the steps, then I would come back to the township board and advise them, okay, we finished this. They gave me, at the beginning, said, okay, this is what it's going to look like.
Mr. Klein, can you make sure, I think you might have hit a on off, yeah, just tap it, it should turn green. Hang on, there you go. Very good, thank you.
So hopefully that, so it got finished and there was reports along the way. So it started from the very beginning with public meetings and then bids, funding, and then ultimately it was the bill at the end, which was, nobody was happy about that one either. Sure. I may not have heard the end of that.
Zion?
The red light. The red light.
Yep. Okay, let's try this again. How do you ensure open communication and transparency with residents, the township board, and other stakeholders? Can you share an example of a time when you built or rebuilt trust within a community?
Sure. How I would ensure is I have to remain present and constantly communicating. I have a cell phone. It's usually always on. I take phone calls at all hours of the night. When I was police chief, and that's where it comes from, I was on call. It doesn't matter. I took the call. And I do it now, much to my wife's chagrin sometimes. But things need to get fixed, so I will take those calls, and that may be a more of a personality trait of mine, that I want to be there present, because I would, again, rather not be surprised with something down the road. Let me know about it, let's get it fixed, and then I communicate it to you guys. As far as rebuilding trust, when I left White Lake Township and went to Lansing Township as police chief, it was an area that was decimated by GM. They took off. They had brownfields. They had not a lot of status, not a lot of revenues coming in. We had to do a special assessment on the whole township just to get some police cars. So I went out. We held town meetings. I made sure I was at all of those town meetings. I went to church meetings, and really it was more about letting them know what we were going to provide and just let them know what was happening versus trying to, hide it, get it done. Special assessment, we can do that. Just go ahead and get it done. It was more about information and getting into them and being present and talking to them and listening. I mean, it is that easy just to communicate with people, and as long as you're present and doing it.
Great. I'll turn it back to the candidate for a moment to see if he has any questions for the board members, but I'd ask that the board members, if you have any follow-up questions, maybe take a note or two, and then I'll come back to you. We'll have a couple minutes for additional questions if you have any. Adam, do you have a question that maybe the supervisor or any member of the board can answer that you
Well, I did ask one earlier of Nate, and I wondered how the wrestling team did, because he brought it up at a meeting.
Son was a pretty successful wrestler, right?
What's that?
Your son was a pretty successful wrestler, right?
You did your research?
I know, I follow wrestling. I follow wrestling.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a great sport. I love it, and yes, he was. My question, I guess, is how quickly, and I'd ask, I think Jennifer is the assistant. Was it Jennifer? Yeah. How quickly are you process? How has this process been? I've been in other interviews. James, I've worked with James before, and I think he's great. And that's an unsolicited review, but it is refreshing to be with professionals versus doing it on your own. Would you like to answer?
Yeah, I would say that yesterday,
Okay.
2 months ago. I mean, we are in need.
I want to watch all of them,
Yeah.
especially when you switched over and you had some difficulties with the. I don't know who I was mentioning to earlier, but you get the commercials now when you watch it on YouTube.
After
didn't
the
know.
record, yeah. If they're live, there's none.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, recorded, yeah.
All right.
I think there's enough people here that would like to turn over the batons that they've taken, because all of us has
Okay.
taken some type of role that the township manager covers, and we're just ready to hand it over the baton.
With all of those things that you have going on, how quickly do you expect the township manager to hop in and just take those batons and get rolling? Was that yesterday also?
I think that really depends on the,
I mean, after he gets in here.
Oh.
I would say, I guess, depending upon what task it is, to turn over the reins to what, we're
Because
taking over.
Budgets come, I mean, that's got to be in here
we're in it.
early, right?
Yes, and we're already in that process.
Yeah. Okay.
How you are going to approach things. I mean, that's what I do with my people that report into me is give me your 100-day plan or
Right.
of what we think. We're supposed to identify the priorities to you coming in. So that's how I look at it, as a collaborative plan.
That sounds great.
I'll ask board members if you have any additional questions for the candidate.
I have just one. What makes you the best candidate?
Well, like I said, I think my experience at being a township manager assists, and you have a lot of things going on here. I think I can do all of those things in a professional and a composed manner, and I really think it's an interest first. That usually makes me the best candidate.
In the role of a township manager, is there information that you believe should be shared with a supervisor?
I can't think of anything that should be shared just with the supervisor. You work as a complete board. I work for all of you, not just one of you. So unless there was some, I can't.
I just had one more question.
Yes.
Just give us, have you had any background in economic development within the township?
No background as far as economic development. I've had residential development in Oakland Township, definitely working with PUDs, different neighborhoods, different builders, putting in neighborhoods, putting in water, making sure that all of the necessary infrastructure is there. So I guess commercial, less commercial, more residential economic development. And that was mostly with Oakland Township.
All right. And
With all of your experience as a law enforcement officer, the police and fire report to the board, not to the managers they do in some townships.
Right.
Would that bother you at all?
Oh, not at all.
So, okay, that was really my only question.
No, I've found, I have done other interviews where the police chief may find it a little bothersome that I have some knowledge of those things. But I've always been more of a, you know, as a resource. If I can help you out, I will. If I can, you know, I still know plenty of the, I mean, I still am part of those, you know, neighborhoods or those I guess, cliques or close relationships with the police chiefs, you know, down Livonia area, and then White Lake and Lansing. So, you know, I still have a lot of those resources. If Chief needs something, I can reach out for him if he needs. But I won't go push it. And it's like, if he needs me, I'll be there as a resource.
Good. All right, last opportunity for questions from the board. All right, Adam, I'll give you the last minute to close. Anything you'd like to share with the board before we close the interview?
Well, again, just want to thank you for inviting me out here. I think if I were the candidate selected, you will be happy with me, and I can do all the things that you need a township manager to do. And look, you know, I plan on being at that next spot, being the last one, as long as township trustees, you know, want me there.
All right, thank you very much. For the board members, if you want to take a short recess, I will escort this candidate out and bring the next candidate up.
Thank you very much.
Returning from a short break, Mr. Vitrano.
Thank you. Thank you, Cameron, for joining us this evening. Appreciate the preparation you've done for this interview, as well as the time you've spent with me throughout the process. I can speak for the township when they say they appreciate the investment you've already made in the community, preparing yourself for this evening. We're going to have structured questions. They will be about 10 of them. Don't worry about your cadence or time. I will keep the time. We'll have each member of the board will ask a question. They are free to ask follow-up questions if they have any, but we'll also provide some time at the end for them to ask any follow-ups or additional questions that they may have. There'll be a brief period for you to be able to ask them a question, but probably pretty limited, so prioritize your question. I'll kick us off. The first question, which you already know, is we've asked you to prepare a 3 to 5 minute introduction of yourself and the reasons you believe you will be successful as Northfield's next township manager.
So again, for those of you that haven't met me yet, my name is Cameron Horvath. Somewhat of a local product. I grew up in Brighton Township, attended Michigan State University. I got a degree in landscape architecture from there. Lived in Hamburg Township, and now currently reside in Webster Township. So I've been kind of all over the place. Still in Washington County now. So I guess specifically why I think I'll be a good fit in Northfield. So I'm currently a city manager. So obviously the day-to-day activities that one would expect from a municipal leader I'm already doing. On a deeper note, though, I would say what would set me apart is my adaptability. Again, my background's in landscape architecture, but it's not public administration. I've worked in the private sector. I've now worked in the public sector. I've done things such as private residential development. For instance, I know you've got a Chestnut development here. When I worked in Livingston County and Howell, I was doing a lot of plans actually for Chestnut development. Very familiar with the process, presenting to planning commission, so on and so forth. On the private side and on behalf of the client. Now, I have a little bit of experience on the public side, certainly, but I've spent time in construction industry, planning, been a project manager. Some of these kind of are at the same firms, roles, but I've worn a lot of hats, and I'm in a small community now. I certainly can appreciate the jack-of-all-trade nature that sometimes is required in that role. So, for instance, in my current position, I'm not only the city manager, but we're without a DPW director right now, so I'm going in that capacity. Additionally, we have a part-time building official. I know you guys are also looking for. Seems like a sorry about that. Hard position to fill nowadays, but I'm doing some rental inspection as well. So I kind of transcend different departments. I try to help where I can. Always willing to do so, but I would think, at least my opinion is my adaptability would be set me apart from other candidates.
Thank you. I think Adam has the first question.
Based on your research and understanding of the township, what do you believe are the most important opportunities and challenges for the township, and how would you approach these?
When reviewing different things like your master plan, some of your minutes, I know that there are certainly guided decisions when it comes to growth in the township. I live in a township, so I certainly can appreciate kind of the rural component of it. Land preservation, I know, is a big deal. You obviously have a lot of agriculturally zoned property. I think it's important to keep those. So I would say one of the things that you'll be faced with, and I'm sure you've already experienced, as many other communities do, but just how you want to grow, right? There's a lot of people out there that are always looking to make money and to do a development. I'm sure, again, driving by all the time, I see the Chestnut property right on the corner of Whitmore Lake Road there. So I know it's happening, but I would say most communities face is what's the right fit, right? Is this the right thing for us? I would think, again, given my experience on the private side, you know, I know what I was told to say when I go in front of a planning commission on how this is going to be so great, and it's going to increase your tax base, and you're going to get sidewalk on both sides of the road, and you should all be fawning over this, but in reality, it's not always the case. Additionally, I know that you have a sewer system, a sanitary sewer system. Certainly, it's a heavy lift operating one of those and maintaining it. We have an aging sanitary or wastewater treatment plant in my current community as well. And it's always a challenge trying to find the dollars to upkeep it, to maintain it. And it's just hard-nosed diligence on behalf of the staff and the board or the council to find the right opportunities to try to do that. So at least from what I gathered, it seems like those are probably the two maybe biggest challenges in trying to figure out. But in regards to the first one about zoning, that's also an opportunity, right? I mean, if you've got people that want to be here, that's certainly a positive. It's just managing that expectation and deciding what it is that the community wants, and that's what the master plan's for. I mean, it's your guide really on what the people have said. So sticking to that, but in regards to the sanitary sewer issue, again, having worn multiple hats, I'm not going to say I'm an engineer because I'm not, but certainly have dabbled in water and wastewater and feel like I know enough to at least have an intelligent conversation about. But I think I could lend my experience there well, whether it's from the private side or my experience now as a city manager.
Thank you, Cameron. I got the next question here. So how would you describe your management and leadership style? Please identify both strengths and any weaknesses related to your management and leadership approach.
My leadership style I would describe as I try to be family oriented, and what I mean by that is I try to be respectful of everybody. I like having almost a family atmosphere in the office where everyone feels comfortable talking to each other. There's really no awkwardness. I maintain an open door policy where I currently am, which means that if anyone has an issue or an idea at any time, they're welcome to track me down, and I keep my door open for them. Certainly there's a job to do, but I also think that there needs to be an element of fun that's injected into the workplace. At least in my experience, that seems to always help morale and camaraderie amongst employees. Otherwise, it can go stale. So I try to do that. Additionally, I try to be approachable and personable with really anybody I meet. There's certainly a time and place to be stern and to hold the line, but I also try to be friendly, and I believe that you often catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. So I try to maintain that. But really, again, I think just being respectful towards everyone. If you're treating someone with respect, I expect it in return. Open lines of communication are always extremely important in managing a municipality between the board, the council, but your department heads as well. Another thing that I try to strive to do. So really, I would say that kind of summarizes management style.
So what do you consider essential in the relationship between a township manager and the township board? And how will you facilitate a productive relationship with the board?
So again, I think a big one here, and it's earned, and I apologize, Nate, I forgot there was a second part of your question. If you need me to, I can go back and re-answer it about potential weakness. I realize I didn't touch on that, but.
No, go ahead. I mean, we're good on time, so yeah, let's.
Okay, all right. Sorry, Kathy, can you repeat it just real quick? Yeah. So I alluded to it a little bit, but one of my weaknesses, and like I said, the city manager. I've taken on the role of interim kind of DPW director and rental inspections in our building department. I like helping, but sometimes it can be a weakness where there's a gap, and I volunteer myself. Just knowing how I am as a person, you know, I like to think that I'll do the job right, so I volunteer, but it can also lead me down this path of now I have 3 jobs to do and still only 10 hours in the day. So, so far I've managed it, but that's gotten me in trouble in the past where it's almost like you take on too much. And like in school for group projects and stuff, I always found that I was the kid that if there was someone that wasn't pulling their weight, that I was the one to step in. But again, that's kind of a double-edged sword. So that has been a weakness in the past that I'm working on and trying to be more cognizant of. Yeah.
All right, I can repeat it.
Yeah, thank you.
What do you consider essential in the relationship between the township manager and the township board? And how will you facilitate a productive relationship with the board?
So I think a big one, and again, I'm somewhat limited in my experience in only the municipality I currently represent, but I think it's trust is a huge component of it. And again, it takes time, but I've worked to the point in my current role where I feel like they trust me and I trust them, and it's really helped operation of the city. So they believe that I'm truly doing things in their best interest, and I believe that when they make decisions that they're weighing everything that I've told them, and they're making what they feel is the best decision for the city. I do a weekly update, which is every Thursday before the end of the day. I just kind of summarize what each department's done, what I've been working on throughout the week. It helps keep them informed. That's something I think I would continue to do. But building that trust, again, it takes time, but the open door policy helps. When I first started, I invited council members down to meet with me. I came up on my days off before I even started to try to meet with them to get an understanding on how they were as a person. And I try my best to individually get to know everybody on the board. I happen to coach my son's hockey team, and I find that if you get to know each player or each person individually, it helps kind of break that barrier down a little bit, again, and trying to be approachable and friendly. You know, it's much easier to get along with someone that you feel like you can relate to, and I try to do a good job in doing that. But I think trust is the biggest thing, and I think it's just repetition and being around each other and getting to know each other, I think helps facilitate that.
Thank you. How do you see this role fitting into your longer-term career goals, and what would long-term success in this position look like to you?
So I currently drive about an hour to my place of employment. If I'm being honest, it gets tough at times, 10-hour days and then an hour drive there, an hour drive back. Doesn't give me much time at home for the first 4 days of the week. I have 2 younger kids, so I very much relish my time with them. I know they'll only be small for so long. So long term, I really like, obviously, the location and the familiarity I have with the area. I mean, that's a big part of why I'm excited about this opportunity, is just the familiarity and the proximity to where I live frees up 2 hours of my day. So long term, I mean, I like what I do. I'd like to make a career out of this. Long-term success to me, you know, the township certainly has goals. What I did when I started in my current role is I kind of got like a top 5, what are these wish list items that we're really looking to do, and I prioritize those. And again, not to try to come off as boastful, but of the 5, I've probably got 3 or 4 of them done, and I've been there for 4 years. So to me, it's just accomplishing the goals that the township set for themselves. I mean, to me, that would be success. The citizens or residents have already spoken on what it is they'd like to see in the future. Making those things come a reality, I guess, is what I would define success after my time here.
Please describe the strategies you would use to recruit and retain talented individuals to serve the township. And please share specific examples from your previous roles that demonstrate effective approaches in this area.
Oh, recruitment, that's a hard one. So again, this kind of goes back to a previous question, but I do feel like if people get a sense of comfort or the opportunity to be heard in a role, I think that goes a long way with keeping people happy long-term. So when we hire people and we're going through the interview process, we try our best to pitch the positives of what the community is, but at a certain point, you also need to be realistic. So my community is qualified as a disadvantaged community. It's hard to attract people with the rates that we can pay, so we need to be very creative in how it is that we attract. One of the things that we found to be successful is focusing mostly on local individuals and not necessarily worrying about people that maybe applying 30 miles or 40 miles away, knowing that the added drive time and stuff sometimes is a deal breaker for people. We've had a lot of success in just being selective about who it is we're interviewing that's local, that has some type of loyalty or tie to the area. Again, it may seem obvious, but it's one thing for us, since we're not necessarily super competitive with the wages that we pay, that we've been able to still find and maintain people. Police is a different story. I'm sure your chief tells you. It's hard to find police really anywhere nowadays. So that, even locally, is a challenge, but we maintain still. So I guess that'd be one of my strategies is focus or prioritize maybe something local, and hope that it bears the same type of fruit that it's bared in my current community. And then, Jacqueline, was there a second part to that question as well?
And then please share, well, you have, and
Okay.
please share examples from your previous roles that demonstrate effective approaches in this area.
Yeah, so that's essentially what we do. We try to hit the highlights on what it is our community can offer, but we focus primarily on local talent.
How have you effectively managed budget and financial responsibilities in your previous roles? Can you provide an example of how you communicated budget decisions transparently to stakeholders?
Yeah, so again, it's a challenge. Luckily, in my current community, I have a close relationship with our treasurer. So I'm involved in a lot of the budgeting. Since I have a decent understanding of it, it helps me operate with requests for purchase and things like that throughout the year. So we do a monthly department head meeting where we're currently at. So after a council meeting, we'll sit down with all the department heads. Our treasurer prints out kind of a snapshot in time that goes over different departments, what was budgeted, where we're at in the year. So it gives everyone just a quick snapshot in time of we're halfway through the year. If things are going according to plan, we should be at about 50% of what we budgeted. And if it's not, we'll have a discussion as to why it's not. But we can make adjustments going forward, or if we're under, great. Maybe there's room to do something that we necessarily didn't have in our radar for one reason or another. So that helps. As far as making decisions, or an example of that, I mean, there's a lot. The first one that comes to my mind is a bit humorous to me, but we don't have any type of signage or advertising in our city about events or anything. So there was a request from some council people to build or install like a lighted neon sign out in front of City Hall. It was going to cost roughly $55,000. But there was plenty of other things that I felt were more of a necessity than just a lighted sign out in front of City Hall that, again, public outcry is we never know when events are. Man, it'd be great to have this sign, but it might also be nice to have non-lethal use of force and tasers, or rebuild this catch basin in our storm system, or something like that that's maybe a little more applicable or needed rather than a sign. So that was a pretty quick conversation. And since the mayor's the one that gave it to me, I just said, listen, I mean, we don't have $55,000 laying around for something like this. Maybe one day, maybe it could be an ARPA expense. I know that ship is sailed or is sailing, depending on where you're at, but you know, we ended up prioritizing other things that way too. But that was one that was pretty easy to squash, just knowing our budget and what we had.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Back around to me. In your past roles or projecting to what you will do at Northfield, how have you or will you try to manage community growth in a way that preserves community character and supports the community's economic goals? Can you provide a specific example of what you've done or would plan to do as the Township Manager?
Yeah, so, sorry, Adam, can you repeat that one?
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, it's a long one, and I stumbled through it.
No, you're all right.
So, how have you or will you try to manage community growth in a way that preserves community character and supports the community's economic goals?
Okay. So, again, I didn't read every page of your master plan, but I know there's certain goals that were listed in there. Please don't quiz me on them, but I know that they were there. And again, these documents, a lot of times I think, and I know it holds true, at least in my municipality, but we have all these policies, but they're not necessarily always the forefront and center of everyone's thought process. But all that stuff is there to provide a framework as to how it's expected or what is expected of the township. I think it's vital to constantly be referencing that and not necessarily wavering from what I'm assuming the public, through your participation policy, have described that they want to see and that you've adopted as a board. So following that, but additionally, again, I think it's just being smart and selective about what it is that you guys are doing. I mean, there's things that I read in there that I commend you on, like the facade program that I know is no longer, or at least I don't think it's any longer in service. But the intent behind it, right, was to provide a funding source for local business owners to keep kind of the historic nature of, you know, the village. And I think that's commendable, you know, instead of having nothing and letting people put up galvanized sheet metal or something as a facing, you have a priority on what you'd like to see. And we try to do the same thing in Durand. We didn't have a facade program, but things like that, I think, help drive what it is that you're looking for. So again, it's being smart and selective. If you guys like land preservation, there's things in zoning you can do, like cluster developments, where, you know, you're setting aside most of the property and maybe the development's smaller and more compact. So you're not necessarily utilizing a 90-acre umbrella for all your housing, but it's focused on a certain portion of the site. So it's just, again, using the tools that you already have in front of you, sticking to them, and hopefully everyone's adopted that mantra in my current role. Sometimes the Planning Commission good, bad, or indifferent, they're very pro-development. So the prospect of inviting someone new into town that's going to have a tax base somewhat overshadows some of the guidelines that we have in place, how many trees they have to have, parking lot lighting. And as soon as you start sacrificing things, it's a slippery slope to ever recover. So again, I think just sticking to your guns and what you guys have identified that you want is the way to accomplish that.
All right. The township has significant investments in its wastewater treatment plant and has grant funding to invest in the shoreline and park improvement projects. Please provide your experience in managing large public infrastructure projects.
We just finished one in my current community, specifically towards wastewater. We're a sea-level plant. We have trickling filters and clarifying tanks, and when I started, we had 1.5 of the tanks that were actually functional, and the other 3.5 were just totally out of service. And we somehow managed, but that project we got through state revolving fund dollars. Again, luckily with a good admin staff. As long as everybody's tracking the time, someone's out there inspecting, hopefully there's a good engineering firm involved, doing their role, inspecting what's the expected deliverable. It wasn't too bad, honestly, to manage, but again, it was a team effort. I can't sit up here and say that I did everything. I certainly didn't, but again, with a good staff, and depending on where the funding's coming from, sometimes they'll offer support as well in tracking the dollars on their end. So it's, I say it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's one of those things that you just got to stay on top of. You know, as soon as you let it kind of slip out of your mind, that's when mistakes can happen. So keeping it forefront and center while it's going is certainly important. Additionally, we haven't started it yet, but I'm learning all of the rigors of federal funding. So we were awarded $1 million park grant in my community. And again, we don't have a grant writer or grant staff in any capacity, so that's me. And I'm working with Housing and Urban Development to wade through all the red tape, environmental reviews, hiring an architectural historian to make sure we're not disrupting the nature of the community, hiring an archaeologist to do a dig in a park that's been around for 100 years. You know, it's a lot, but it's just, you pull up your bootstraps and you get to work, and eventually you wade through it all. But certainly a process. It wouldn't be unfamiliar to me. Again, I think when I met Brian earlier, is that, yeah. Yep. He made a mention of $7 million. I haven't done necessarily a $7 million project, but I had a $4.6 million streets grant when I first started. So again, have experience, wouldn't be necessarily foreign to me. But my mantra is just staying on top of everything. Helps the project succeed.
Thank you.
How do you ensure open communication and transparency with residents, the board, and other stakeholders? Can you share an example of a time when you built or rebuilt trust within a community?
Yeah, so so I guess for the first part of that, how do you build trust? Again, I think communication's a big one. I think being familiar with one another certainly also helps that. Again, I already kind of talked about my weekly update, and that just kind of pulls the veil back on, you know, I'm full-time, you know, you guys are elected officials. You're not necessarily here all the time to know what happens consistently. So for me, it's a way for you to kind of keep tabs on things, and me letting you know, hey, here's what everybody's working on. You know, it's not that we sat around and watched YouTube all day. This person was doing this, I was doing that. I think that certainly helps. Again, communication. As far as an example in my current community, so we have a historic rail depot. The city owns the building. We do not own the land. We lease the land from CN Railroad for 99 years for $1. And then we lease our building to a nonprofit 501c3 rail museum, basically. Again, you get surprised at what people bicker over, but there was 2 competing rail nonprofits in town that both seemingly had the goal of preserving rail history in the city, but they were feuding, and honestly, it was before my time, I didn't get into the details, but in this feud, the rail museum and the city's relationship had kind of soured. Again, when I started, I just kind of had a meeting with the director and said, you know, I feel like I don't have a dog in this fight. I mean, don't hate me. I'm just the guy that's stepping in here. And slowly, over time, as she felt that she was heard, and we worked together, we collaborated on a grant opportunity and awarded it. Again, going back to the wish list items, one of the things is, since we have so many rail crossings in the city, this depot is severed from our downtown by a rail line. So for probably 30 years, there was public outcry to get some type of pedestrian crossing across this rail line. Just last week, we had a meeting with the railroad, seemingly thinking that that's a real possibility. They gave us the green light to do it. But again, none of that happens if there's not a collaborative effort to try to repair lost trust. So it's never too late. Again, we're all need to be rowing the boat in the same direction. You know, she has her marching orders of what she wants to do at this rail museum. The city has their marching orders and what we'd like to see done. Everything functions much better if we all have the same understanding, and if we don't, you know, that's fine, but you all still need to work together, right? So there's really no sense in having this bad attitude or these soured relationships, because I feel like it just slows progress down. So I know not everyone's going to be happy. You're not going to be friends with everybody. I certainly understand that, but as much as you can be, I try to make things work. And again, it's effort. No different than a marriage. You got to put effort in to make it work. So that's what I try to do.
Thank you, Cameron. You're at the end of the structured questions. I'll ask the board members to consider questions that you may ask the candidate as follow-up, but I'll take a pause and ask Cameron if you have any questions for the supervisors or member of the board that you may have for them.
Yeah, so I guess so you asked me what I felt were the biggest maybe challenges or opportunities. I guess I would return that same question to you as what the board is focused on as maybe the biggest current challenge at the time.
Currently, there's several, but preparing our master plan, of course, is top right, and one of the top ones right now. The sewer capacity is another. Help me out, someone else.
Building department official.
That's true, yes. So building official, getting our building department back in a shape that we used to have. We have some development coming down the pike, so that's been another important one. Anyone else?
Park.
It's the park.
The other side of that question that we had for you, challenges and opportunities, the opportunities for the township, I think, way outweigh the challenges. We have an abundant ag district, and I think we have a priority to preserve that, and we also have the opportunity to develop our downtown area. So to be able to have some development and preservation in the same community, I think, is a great opportunity if we have the right manager leading it.
So I would even say with the park, we have 23 acres. Not all of it is a park. 11 acres is a park, and it's been dedicated. We've identified it. It has DNR grants. We have a $2.0 million grant for the lakefront and whatever is left over into the park. So the question is, the reason why we did that, because we always thought that 10 acres would pay for our park. Well, so far, we've gotten grants to pay for it. So the question is, what do we do with that 10 acres? What could we do? And people want to incorporate it into the park, but that's a lot to maintain. 23 acres is a lot to maintain. So the question is what to do with it. In addition to, how do we combine it? Because it's all downtown. How do we combine it with downtown? The other part of it too is we have commercial property off of North Territorial that need to be developed. And how do we get that developed in conjunction with some of the struggles that we're having with our sewer? So.
I'll turn it back to the board now if you have any additional questions for the candidate.
I think similar question, previous candidate. I just want to make sure we're asking the same questions. Is there any information that you think you would share with a supervisor that wouldn't need to be shared with the rest of the board? And if so, can you give an example?
Well, I mean, and I guess it's not necessarily specific, but at least the policy we've adopted in my current community is the only people right now that we allow to speak to the media are the manager and the mayor. Again, I don't know how it's handled here, but that's one instance in my current role that the mayor and I may have a conversation specific to something media-related. It's not to say that I wouldn't share it with the rest of the board, I certainly would, but in the moment, if the media is calling, the first person I may call without conferring with everybody else would just be the mayor. That's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head that would warrant that, but again, in being transparent, I think it is important that everyone is in the know, because at any given moment, someone could stop you and ask you a question. So information is power.
Next one. In a lot of communities, all the department heads roll up to the city manager. Here, all of our department heads, except for police and fire, they answer directly to the board. So everybody but police and fire would roll up to the township manager. Would that give you any issue, or would you have any problems with that?
Don't have any pause about it or hesitation, but it is different. So I mean, all it would take is some getting used to, but I don't see a reason why it would be an issue as long as we're all getting together, getting along. I think that's fine. I understand that's how township works too. So, yep.
Anyone else?
Okay, might as well ask mine. The two that I have is, what makes you the best candidate?
So again, I'll just say that I've been deliberate in my career in trying to become the most well-rounded individual that I feel like I can be for what I kind of envision my career path to be. When I first started out, out of college, I wasn't quite sure where my career would take me, but the older I've gotten, the more refined it's become. So again, I've worked for private development. I kind of know that game, what they come to say, what they say is going to be a benefit. I feel like that certainly helps me. I've worked in construction, not necessarily swinging a hammer, but different construction fields, so it gives me a decent understanding of when I do these rental inspections. I'm not just some guy off the street looking around like, oh, yeah, it's a nice place. I mean, I have some wherewithal as to what it is I'm supposed to be doing. I've worked for engineering firms, so I've laid out sanitary sewer, done storm basin calculations, laid out water main, placed hydrants, every 300 feet in Livingston County, understand well isolation distances for type 1 wells in a municipality. I've deliberately tried to get as much information as I can about the municipal process that I feel like a lot of other people probably can't say the same. So for me, that's what I think sets me apart.
Okay.
And then the last question is your experience with economic development.
So economic development, it's kind of a fun one for me. So we, in Shiawassee County, we have a countywide kind of pseudo-private public partnership group that does a lot of economic development work for us. But I enjoy going out and kind of prospecting or keeping my ear to the pavement, if you will, on different opportunities. So we have land that's available in the city right now. And through sometimes just talking in a coffee shop or going to a conference, we've managed to unload some of those for business development. The idea of going out and attracting development, like I said, is fun to me. I spent some time in real estate as well, so I have some connections in that field to this day, and I think it's super important. So I put a high priority on economic development. Not always easy, but the more you build relationships, again, with folks at the state, MEDC, Detroit Regional Partnership, you know, I've got some contacts there that certainly have been allies. But I've dabbled in it. I won't say that I'm a pro, certainly not. I don't want to mislead anybody, but it's something I enjoy doing, so I would continue to try to do my best here.
All right. Hearing that there's no other questions, Cameron, I'm going to give you the last minute or so to close with anything you'd like to share with the board.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for your time. Again, I know it's not always glamorous, but certainly commend you on what you do. You make hard decisions that sometimes people don't like, which I know is difficult, but a lot of times are the right ones. So it's no cakewalk, but certainly a needed part of local government. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to have made it this far. If I'm selected to move on, I would be absolutely thrilled. Again, it's close by. I feel like it's home. It's familiar, and yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. You got a great community here, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. For the board, we'll take a short recess. I'll also work on the technology. When we come back, we should be ready to go. But please take your recess, and I'll escort the candidate out.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we are back in session. We are going to switch to the Zoom portion, of which hopefully the viewers just see, they will see the Zoom between Mr. Vitrano and the applicant. So bear with us.
All right, can you hear me, Douglas?
I can hear you. How about me?
Okay, give me 1 minute. We're going to try and turn your volume up in this room.
Turning up.
All right, can you just say hi again?
Hello.
Better. Okay. Douglas, first, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I appreciate your time and your effort to be here via Zoom, just so you have a lay of the land of who you're talking to, because you're just looking at me right now. It's the setup that we have is you're in the township boardroom, you're on the screens, we could see your video, and that is what the public is also seeing. The township board is listening. I will ask all of the questions so that it can be captured by the microphone and so that you can hear them, and you will give your responses. Your responses will be captured by the room mics, which will be captured by the video, and we are on the township's YouTube site. So that's the process that we're going to undergo this evening. Any questions for me specifically about the process that we're on?
I have no questions.
All right. First, thank you for preparing for this evening. And of course, all the effort you put into meeting with me, getting ready for this evening. And I do want to acknowledge, Robert, you go by Douglas, correct, for purposes of moving forward with the interview?
That's correct.
Awesome. Just so I can have clarity among the name that's on there and what I am calling you. You know the first question, so I'll ask that in a second, but you'll have a series of structured questions, and at the very end, I'll give the township board members an opportunity to ask questions through me to you. You'll have an opportunity to ask, just to prioritize your questions, probably just a short period to ask them questions. So with that as our opening instructions, you know the first question I'm going to ask, which is, can you please provide a brief introduction of yourself and why you believe you'll be successful at Northfield's next township manager?
So good evening, everybody. My name is Dulles McDonough. I am currently in the United States Army. It'll be 20 years in May that I've been in the Army. I am retiring this year. So why North? I'm looking for, I've been in the Army, so moved around a lot, kind of all over the country. I'm looking for some stability. And I'm looking for a town with Midwest values. I've lived in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri. So I love the Midwest, and I'm looking for a small town to raise my family and my three boys. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons why Northfield interests me as a town. The Midwest value on atmosphere. My boys are extremely active, and so Northfield with Whitmore being right there, and the bike trails that have been developed over the past couple of years, that a lot of opportunities for outdoor activities for the boys, which is what I'm looking for. Schools are important, and I've heard that my wife is an educator. Look in the schools. Schools look very good in that part of Michigan. So really excited for the opportunity. Why do I think currently in the so essentially I'm for a 600. I'm in charge of 600, and I think a lot of the skills I developed in the Army will translate well. First off, I'll start with one of the most important values in the Army loyalty to the Constitution, loyalty. I think that translates very well to a township manager, where my loyalty is to the board, to the township's and so I think loyalty is incredibly important. As the chief battalion commander, my responsibilities are human resource, logistic, systems, and I think that translates very well to a township manager. For instance, on vehicles that I'm responsible for. And so those skill sets from human resources, just what township. And finally, systems and processes, something that I have to manage. Direct reports. I have over 50 years of my formation. How I systems and is something that will translate very well to a township.
Thank you, Douglas. Give me one moment. Your audio is coming through pretty well, but there is some breaking in the audio. So let's see if we can change a quick setting here. So give me a pause. I think the board got most of what you were saying, but want to just make sure we take a pause to see if there's anything else we could do to clarify.
Okay, perfect.
Sure. Good. At the moment, I may interrupt you during a question if it's starting to break up. Again, I would say it's coming about 80%. There's just a pause in a second. So if you can make sure, Douglas, just that you're close to your mic and speak slowly, we can try it again or keep going. Worst case, we'll pull you off and I'll get the audio feed through my phone or something else. But let's try and work through this. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate the board's patience. Yes. Okay. Yep. I appreciate that. I don't think, Douglas, you can hear the comments in the room, correct?
I did hear the comments. It's a little soft, but it's audible.
Okay, good.
That's better.
Yep. Okay. We've got a solution. Okay. All right, Douglas. Man, the military teaches you to think on your feet, right, and always be ready. We're almost always ready, but we'll think at our feet. Your next question is, based on your research and understanding of the township, what do you believe are the most important opportunities and challenges for the township, and how would you approach these?
So I think both the opportunity and the challenge is development in the township, and I get the sense there is a tension between the desire to grow and the desire to keep things maintain the same size of the township. And so I think that's going to be both the challenge and the opportunity, because the reality is this: you can only break ground once, and once you start development, it's really hard to turn it off. And so that requires strategic decisions if the township wishes to grow. So how do I, as the township manager, look and approach that? I think one, it's what is the board? What is the vision? What does the board want to do? That is the most important thing. I talked about loyalty, and my loyalty is to the board. And really, I have to operationalize what it is that the board's vision is for the township as it comes to economic development. So that's step one. is understanding what that vision is, and then I operationalize that. That's where those systems and processes with the staff, I think, come into important play. And we operationalize it. We develop a strategic plan for the township. Where do we want to go in the future? And then I develop the strategy and the approach to help get us there. All the while, we have to maintain transparency with the members of the community. And so transparency, I think, is also key as we lay out this strategic plan and where we want to go moving forward. And so soliciting feedback from members of the township, I think, is also going to be critical as we look at the economic development and the development needs of the township.
Thank you. Next question is, how would you describe your management and leadership style? Please identify both strengths and weaknesses related to your management and leadership approach.
So I think the most important thing as a manager or a leader is that you have to show people that you care. And I've learned that in the Army. Our job is we're prepared to go into combat operations, and we have to potentially, when you go into combat, you're looking at potentially losing soldiers, and so you have to build the trust in order to build those bonds necessary to go into combat. And so that's one of the things that I would bring forward to the township. And that goes from the people of the community. I would do that. I'm going to be active in Scouts. My wife's an educator, so we're going to be in the schools. We're going to be out in the community. And so that's, so that interaction and that feedback from the community is important. For the staff, knowing where their background, their needs professionally, what are their personal and professional goals? I think that's incredibly important. And the same thing goes for the board. So I think that is the most important thing that as a leader that I can bring to the table. And I think that's incredibly important to build that trust, because if people trust me, that's gonna enable me to achieve the vision of the board. I am generally more introverted, which I don't necessarily see that as a weakness. I just think that that's something that I recognize within myself. And so, interactions with the board, what does the organization, what does the staff need? I think that's important. And so, while I'm introverted, I wouldn't per se call that a weakness. It's just something I recognize in myself. And I've got to be what the community needs. And so I'm very comfortable, and it's taken time and it's taken practice as far as articulating myself in public settings. I have to be what the organization needs me to be. So while that is kind of my nature, that's something that I have put the work into, and it's certainly important as a battalion commander too. And it's something I've grown with over time. And it's just something I continually recognize. And it's just something, how do you get better? You practice and you get in front of people and work on your public speaking. And that's something that maybe where I struggled early on in my career, I think I do fairly well now. But it is something I continually work on and put myself into those uncomfortable situations to just continue to hone that skill.
Thank you. Your next question is, what do you consider essential in the relationship between a township manager and the township board, and how will you facilitate a productive relationship with the board?
So there's a couple of principles that I think are incredibly important, and I think my philosophy is no surprises. And so as I look at that relationship with the board should not be surprised by anything that's going on within the township. And so that requires transparency and open communication. One of the things I would look at is is speaking with each member of the board. How do they want to communicate from me? How often? Is that cell phone? Is that in person? What's most comfortable for them? And so, given no surprises, that requires that transparency and open communication and right sizing the dialogue. I think early on, and whomever the board chooses as the next manager, it's probably going to be more frequent communication, and then we right size as we get more comfortable and build that trust between the board and the township manager. And so I think my communication would be more frequent early on and providing more frequent updates to ensure to again get to that point of no surprises for anybody. And then in the event that there's any kind of dissension or we don't agree on something, again, I like to do that behind closed doors. So I will always bring my concerns to the board. What I think I owe the board is my honest opinion, and doing that behind closed doors and in private. And if the board goes a different direction, loyalty to that decision, and the board will have my full vigor in executing whatever that decision, even if I maybe recommended a different direction or disagreed. I will bring up where I disagree, but I'll execute when the decision is made, and that decision's made by the board.
Thank you. Your next question is, how do you see this role fitting into your long-term career goals, and what would long-term success in this position look like to you?
So I'll start that with kind of where some of my personal goals. Again, at the very beginning, I'm looking for stability. I've been all over the country, all over the world in the Army, and I've really enjoyed that stage. My oldest son is 11 years old and getting close to high school. So personally, I am looking for stability for 5, 10, 15 years, and really settling down and putting roots down in a local community. So I think personally, I would be in it for the long haul for the community, as long as the board will have me. And so I completely understand that. But I'm looking for stability in my personal life. And so professionally, wherever I go, I just want to make a difference. I am getting out of the Army. I know what I'm going to miss getting out of the Army, and that's the sense of service. And so I'm looking for a career field where I can serve others. And I think that's where a township manager position is attractive to me, because it gives me that opportunity to continue to serve, in this case, a local community. So where I see myself professionally is helping the board to achieve their vision and operationalize that, and make the township a place where people want to continue to live, because it looks like it's a great community. I want to keep it that way, and just continue to help improve and serve members of the local community.
Thank you. Your next question is, please describe the strategies you would use to recruit and retain talented individuals to serve the township, and please share specific examples from your previous roles that demonstrate effective approaches in this area.
And so, as a battalion commander, as the chief executive, one of the things I am in charge, I have to re-enlist a certain percentage of my formation every year. And so how do you do that? Well, one, you build a culture that people want to serve in. Because if you do that, I am one person, but if I build a culture that people want to serve in, then we are going to re-enlist soldiers, and we've met our re-enlistment goals. We're over 100% for the fiscal year right now for my battalion, which I think is indicative of the culture. And so I think the same thing really applies for the township. One, if the staff, if the current employees, if there's a culture there where people are excited to come to work, they're excited to be a part of the township, that word is going to get out to friends and family who may not live in the local community. And so instead of just me sending a message of and trying to recruit and retain talent, now I have multiple people, because word of mouth is huge. And, if you're looking for a job, hey, where do you want to go work? Hey, I heard Northfield, man, it's a great place to work. People really like it there. That is the most important recruiting tool that you have, because people in that township will talk, people on the staff and the current employees will talk to their family, will talk to their friends. And that's the most important recruiting strategy, I think, that will really enable the community to both attract, but also retain talent. And that's through, it starts with the culture within the township.
Thank you. How have you effectively managed budget and fiscal responsibilities in your previous roles? Can you provide an example of how you communicated budget decisions transparently to stakeholders?
So for a budget, I don't manage a budget as a battalion commander. What I can say that I do is, again, I have 189 vehicles. That's $200 million. And we have to make fiscal decisions on how we maintain that equipment. And so, again, how do I do that? It's transparently. We have tough decisions to make. I don't always have the brigade. My higher headquarters does not always have the fiscal resources to maintain and fix everything. So we have to make choices, tough choices. And so how do we do that? One, it's by providing options, and then looking for creative solutions to make do with what we have. So I look at, do we do a controlled substitution from one vehicle to another? What options do we have available for maintaining our fleet? Can I ask for help from a sister organization? And so, what I try to do with any decision required is providing options and allowing the decision makers to make a decision. And so, how does that translate to the township? It's the same thing. In this case, I believe it's prioritization. What are the board's priorities for services to the community? And then based on those priorities, we provide options to the board in order to allow the board to make smart fiscal decisions. And so, those are just some techniques that I would use in managing the budget for the township.
Thank you. In your past roles or projecting what you would do at Northfield, how have you or will you try to manage community growth in a way that preserves community character and supports the community's economic goals? Can you provide specific examples of what you have done or would plan to do as Township Manager?
So, what it comes back to, what are the priorities of the township as we look at economic growth, because that you want to talk budgetary considerations, growth equals revenue, and so certainly appreciative of that fact. Again, where does the board see the community progressing in the future from the perspective of growth? And then what I would look at doing is developing a strategic plan that's grounded in in the fiscal resources, the revenues of the community, and then really present a strategic plan, and again, provide options for the board as to how we manage that growth over time, while soliciting feedback from the community. And then, as far as maintaining really the small town or those local values, I think there's lots of opportunities to do that within the community. Outreach is going to be important, soliciting feedback from the community, and then just those routine events that the township conducts, whether those are street fairs or local festivals. Those are the ties that really that bind a community together. And so while we have growth occurring, the outreach and then the participation of the community is going to be incredibly important to maintain that small town feel while we're managing growth over time.
Thank you. The township has significant investment in its wastewater treatment plant and has grant funds to invest in shoreline and park improvement projects. Please provide your expertise in managing large public infrastructure projects.
So I'll go back, and my first deployment in the Army, we were the 2nd Surge Brigade into Baghdad. And so one of our, we were providing stability from a security perspective, but we were also very heavily involved in the provincial projects. If you can imagine going down the streets of Baghdad, the sewage in Baghdad, they had 2 trenches dug on either side of the street, and you had raw sewage flowing down in these large trenches. And so you can imagine the smell. You can imagine what that looked like for members of the community. And so we did a lot of work with the provincial government as we were, and putting a lot of American dollars into developing these large wastewater treatment projects, running sewage lines through the city. And so a key part of my role was providing insight on progress, because it was contractors, so monitoring contractor progress, providing assessments and evaluations. We called them SWETNess: sewage, water, electricity, academics, trash. We were evaluating the progress of that in our local community. So that's some firsthand experience I have, particularly as you ask about wastewater treatment. The second thing is, how do we stimulate economic development in that portion? This was a slum within Baghdad. And so I managed grants to local entrepreneurs in the community to try to stimulate business and economic activity. Because the thought was, if they're able to feed their family, they're not going to pick up a rifle and fire it at U.S. forces or fire it at Iraqi security forces. And so that first rotation, that first deployment I did was extremely formative for me in the functions of a municipality, what's expected, and then some opportunities to progress and make progress for the local community. And I think that will translate well, to a township manager position. So that first deployment was extremely formative from that perspective.
Thank you. How do you ensure open communication and transparency with residents, the township board, and other stakeholders? And can you share an example of a time when you built or rebuilt trust within a community? So I'll talk about rebuilding trust within an Army organization, which is a community, community in of itself, a little different
than a township. I think there's some similarities. And so, our most recent rotation, we were in Eastern Europe. We were in Lithuania. And my battalion was distributed. So I had elements in Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia. And so what we found is one of my elements was in Poland, and we had a breakdown in trust. We had some misconduct. We had some.
Give me a second. I'm not sure.
I see. I'm going to do what's good for the organization.
Douglas, I'm going to
do it
pause you
transparently.
Douglas, I'm going to interrupt
Yeah.
you for a second. Can you put yourself on rewind by about 30 seconds? This is where we lost you, so can you start right there and continue through? I apologize.
Oh, absolutely. So, my elements were distributed. I was in Lithuania, had elements in Poland and in Latvia. We had an element that was in Poland. We had a breakdown, some misconduct, and that resulted in a loss in operational effectiveness. And so you have to do what's good for the organization. And so I had to move some folks around to get the right people in position. But I didn't do that in a vacuum. I kept, this is where I'm going, and sir, do you have any guidance there? And so I think that's important. You translate that to a township manager position. The reality is there's going to be things that happen in the community that we don't want to happen. Maybe it's a sewer line that breaks. Or maybe there's some vandalism in the community, or maybe there's some budget. We have some fiscal constraints or some budgetary considerations that we did not take into account. And I think the first thing is bad news does not get better with time. So again, this comes back to that transparency and quickly providing the board. Here's what's happened. Here's what we're. Can you still hear me?
Yep. We've got you back.
I stopped there. So I think when I saw your screen, so should not have to pause or rewind. I did see you go off, and so I paused when I saw that.
Great. Well, we seem to have a little bit of connection issues on this side, and that was actually the last question. I do want to give the board an opportunity to ask you questions they may have. What I'll do, Douglas, if we need to, I'll switch to my phone quickly. If we lose for more than a few seconds, I'll text you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'll ask the board to ask questions. You may or may not hear them. I will repeat them if needed.
Douglas, my name's Adam Only, Northfield Township trustee. My question for you is there any information that you believe should be shared with the township supervisor that wouldn't be shared with the rest of the board members? And if so, can you give an example?
Do you mind repeating that question?
Sure. The question is, do you believe there's any information that should be shared only with the township supervisor and not with the rest of the board? And if so, can you provide examples?
I am not sure, honestly. As I'm just thinking, transparency is so important, and so I'm very hesitant to say that there's something that should not be shared with somebody else. Timing may have an impact, and there may be things that, to prevent surprises. I like to get information. I like to get good news, but really I like to get bad news out to the board as quickly as possible. So I don't like holding anything. I like to over communicate, and so off the top of my head, I don't think that there's anything that should be withheld from anybody. I'm there to again operationalize the vision of the board, and so I'm a pretty open book as a person. But I don't see anything off the top of my head. Now, again, timing may have a factor, and if it's bad news, sooner is better. But outside of that, I don't see anything that should be withheld.
Thank you. Another question was, what do you believe makes you the best candidate for this position?
So, I have no regrets from my Army career. I'm really excited, and I do believe those leadership skills, the Army teaches leadership, and that's, I think, will be incredibly important, I think, as a township manager, and would potentially give myself an edge over other candidates. I have no doubt that the other candidates have probably more experience with the functioning of a municipality. The only thing I would say to that is I'm an artillery officer. Again, 20 years in May. Over half my career has been doing non-artillery things. I've worked in a senator's office in DC. I was involved with provincial reconstruction in my first deployment. I was motorized infantry. I was an infantry soldier my second deployment. So my ability to adapt, I think, is a strength that I have. But I really think that leadership would set me apart from my fellow candidates. And I think that's
Retiring in May, and I was curious of what would be your availability to start at the township?
I would be available in mid-July, so that's when I'll be on. My official retirement date is it's 1 October. I finish my command in June, and then I'll be on terminal leave. So once I'm on terminal leave, I'm able to start employment. My terminal leave starts about 5-6 July. And so really mid-July is my availability date for at the township.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the board?
Yeah, I'll add. This is Trustee Nate Moko. Nice to meet you, Doug. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Under the township structure, a lot of townships, all the department heads answer to the township manager, who then answers to the board. Our township's set up a little different, where all the directors of the departments answer to the township manager, except for police and fire. Those chiefs answer to the board directly. Would that be an issue for you?
No, that would not be an issue for me at all. What it means is additional collaboration is really what would mean, but I would not have an issue with that.
All right, Douglas, I'll give you an opportunity if you have any questions for the board. Again, we're trying to limit this, so prioritize a question if you have one for the supervisors or members of the board.
I think my only question is, what would your expectations be of me if you, or really for whoever you choose as the township manager?
Anyone can answer, but someone loudly.
I would say we would expect you to be the leader of the township staff and be able to make the decisions necessary. You know, right now, they're answering to the board, and, I mean, half this board is only around 2 days a month. So during our absence, we need somebody who can be a leader. If anybody's got anything else, go ahead.
Thank you.
James?
Oh, sorry.
Good.
So I would add too, as far as being a leader is also the voice of the board, being representatives of the board to the public, because the public is going to see you first before they see us. The expectation is advising the board, providing us information, advising us on as much as you can advise us on, and then be able to collaborate with the community, with resources within the community, whether it's in our county, the state, et cetera. That's basically what I'm looking for.
Okay. Douglas, I'll give you the last minute to close out this interview. Anything you would like to share with the board before we sign off?
I would like to say thank you for this opportunity to be here this evening. I'm excited for the opportunity and really, you know, the strength of our nation. I've lived all over the country, from DC to Texas to Kansas. The strength of our country is in small communities with those local values like Northfield. And so I came from a small community growing up, so I'm really excited for this opportunity. And I wish you all the best in your search, and whomever you choose, I hope that they give their all and do their very best. I will certainly do that if selected. And so again, I'm just very thankful for the opportunity this evening. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
I'll leave it to the board if you would like a couple-minute recess, or if you'd like to roll right into a conversation.
I'd like to continue.
Awesome. At this point, you've heard from 3 candidates. You have several options. I want to remind us of kind of the process we laid out before this evening was to hear from the candidates this evening, reserve Thursday of this week if we want to hear from any of them again, and then 1 week from tonight at your regular meeting that Tuesday, have a discussion of the candidates with the outcome being a preferred candidate or to continue to search. That's an option that's also available to you. But that's being set up for a week from tonight at your regular board meeting. I do think it's important for us to preserve that as when you discuss the candidates in detail, and if you want to choose a preferred candidate. The question on the table right now this evening is, do you want to have any of them come back for Thursday, or have you received enough information for you to make some consideration and decision on a week from tonight, Tuesday? So that's the first question to be addressed. Do you want to invite anyone back, or do you have what you need?
I'm speaking for myself, but I think I've gotten enough from this one interview, and I think, in my opinion, I think we could put forward a selection.
Okay,
I don't know about my other fellow trustees.
I concur.
okay,
Agree also.
great. Anyone?
I was just going to say, I liked two of them. One surprised me. I came into it with thinking that it wasn't going to work, and it did surprise me. But there are two that I would think that would do very well.
Good. I appreciate that, and I'll take that as an answer that you have the information you need for consideration a week from this evening.
I believe so.
What I encourage you to do now, assuming that there's some consensus that we won't schedule for Thursday, we're going to be back here and I will facilitate your discussion on Tuesday during your regularly scheduled meeting. What I encourage the board members to do now is reflect on your notes. You cannot meet again as a quorum or as a body to discuss the candidates. What you can do is reflect on your notes, talk with the staff who had an opportunity to meet 2 of the 3 candidates that were here in person to get their impression. Certainly the video that was recorded and that will be played on YouTube, your constituents will see, and you should engage them in conversation to get their thoughts. The reason to not make a decision this evening and rather come back 1 week from tonight, even if you have a candidate that stands out in your mind, is to get that thought that you receive from your employees, get that opinion you receive from the video meetings, and reflect. This is a long evening, 3 hours listening to folks who are really interesting people, but anytime when you have to be this engaged for 3 hours, there's time for separation. When we come together on Tuesday, and I will facilitate that meeting, be prepared to speak about the candidates, realizing that you are a public body and this is a public discussion, and these individuals are employed other places currently. You want to look at why you would like to select someone potentially, not necessarily specificity on why you would not select someone. So those are my guides for you between now and Tuesday. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have regarding process or expectations for now until next week.
Are we doing a special meeting on Tuesday? Is it going to be a 6 o'clock meeting before?
We have a 6 o'clock workshop already
That's
for
right,
police
budget.
and fire budget.
So this will be during the regular meeting then, this discussion? Okay. That was really all I had.
This question, I don't think it's for you, Mr. Vitrino, but just for as the board. I think we need to get this YouTube link out to the public. I would like to hear back from people. I would like to hear that someone watched this and what they think about the candidates. I would like for us to get some emails from our community members, like, even if the email is, I don't think you should hire anyone and you should have a, office manager. I want to hear back from the community, so any way that we can get this out there, if that's Jennifer sharing it on our social media pages, posting it to the township page, whatever it might be, just to kind of get some feedback. We're obviously making the decision, but I think involving our community members to give us feedback is important.
Anyone else? Okay. So moving on. Citizen comment, is there any tonight? Anyone? If so, you need to come to the microphone and, you have to turn it on. Just state your name and your comment.
Nope.
Stay as close as you can, I guess.
Yeah. I think there were some very good questions. I think some candidates were, all of them were certainly very knowledgeable. I have my impressions, you have yours. I think that I would certainly hire a person. I think that, I have some different experiences, I think, than many people. I have spent some time on a lot of different military bases. I've been in Europe on military bases and with military people, and I have a little bit of a handle on it. And so I may interpret things a little bit different than a person who doesn't. But I think you've got some good candidates, and I would make a decision. you need to move fast, you need to move reasonably fast, and you have said that you are really looking to get somebody in here quickly. I would just go ahead and make a decision. Oh, sorry, Richard Block. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Thanks. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll go to board member comments. Mr. Only?
None at this time.
Mr. Moko?
I think we had a good pool. And thanks to all the candidates. And the fireworks gun raffle is starting soon, so reach out for some tickets. Thank you.
Ms. Manley?
Just thank you to all the candidates. We're going to have a tough choice, and that's it.
Ms. Otto?
I wanted to thank James for facilitating this. Also thank the candidates for putting in their name into the hat for the township manager position. The board has some good choices and some thinking to do on this one. Thank you.
Mr. Donner?
Thanks to the candidates, and a big thank you to James for his efforts.
And I'll say thank you, James, and thank you, Lieutenant Powell and Chief Bishop, for assistance in making the Zoom meeting happen. With that, I make a motion to adjourn. Supported by only. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.